So now we will have a look at how we create a delivery in SAP. We will have a look at the two transactions, VL01N, which is the single, and the mass one, which is a VL10. For now, let's have a look at how we would create a delivery using the single. So I go to Logistics, Logistics Execution, Outbound Delivery, and as you can see here, outbound processing, goods issue, outbound delivery, create, single. Whew, quite a lot. So VL01N with reference to a sales order. You have here VL01NO is without a single, without any reference. So I'm going to create one with a reference here. The first thing you see is the shipping point, which is on the sales order, and you have the selection date, which is actually representing of the material availability date on the sales order. So let's have a look at the sales order. And here's the sales order I've prepared. And as you can see here, under the shipping tab in the schedule line, the MAD date is on the 9th of September. So if I go back into the delivery selection, if I put the 9th here, press enter, and there you go, the quantity of 10 for this delivery. Now, just to prove that it uses that date, let's go back. Yeah, and if I put a date, let's say before the 9th, so the 8th, and I press enter, you notice that there's no schedule delivery up to the selected date. So that shows that it uses the schedule line or the MAD date for its selection process. So now let's have a look at the VL10 transaction. So if I go back out, still under the create menu, we have the collective processing, and as you can see here, you see all of the VL10 transactions, the VL10 A, B, C, D, E, and each one will process a different type of document. So let's have a look at the sales order, VL10A. I'll double click on that, and as you can see right on the top, you have the shipping point to select the deliveries. Then you have the delivery creation date, which actually comes from, as we know, the scheduling, which calculates when the delivery must be created in order for it to be delivered on time. And then you have the delivery creation rule. Now, this automatically populates a delivery creation date with either today, and tomorrow, all until this week. And it's great. You don't have to calculate. You can just have it as a variant. And leave the delivery creation date blank, and then based on the rule that you put in, the system will automatically calculate all the deliveries that you need to create. Now, this works great if you have a batch job, especially in the background. It might be that you only want to create deliveries that have to be created today, or today and tomorrow. And this selection is driven by the business. When do they want to create the delivery, and for what date range? So it's always important to understand what the business requirement is. Then under the general data, you have various options like the delivery priority or shipping conditions. I just want to point out route. This is quite important here because route allows us to segregate different sales orders and create them at different times. For example, you might want to create a particular route first because it needs to go out first. Because you want that option to create the deliveries as late as possible, you might want to say this route needs to be shipped out first. I'll create this first, process them, then create the routes that can be shipped out later. So you create the deliveries as low as possible. Or for example, you can exclude return routes. This is a way to do it. Next, you have sales organization, so you can create deliveries based on sales organization. You have document types also, so it might be that you want to exclude return deliveries, return sales orders, or it might be that you want to create rush orders every single hour, for example. This is where you would, when you run the background job, you can put in the delivery types. And lastly, the goods issue date, so it might be that you want to say create all deliveries where it needs to be issued for today. In the sales order here, you have the document range, the sole two-party, but more importantly is the forwarding agent. So you might want to prioritize the creation of deliveries for a particular forwarding agent. Then you have the delivery block. Obviously, you don't want to create sales or the deliveries with a particular delivery block. You have the plant here and the storage location, but I would usually use the shipping point instead. It's a little bit more better. Another one is partner function, if you ever want to create a delivery based on partner function. So let's go ahead. I'll execute this. And in this case, for this sales order, I want to create the delivery in background mode. We've seen how we create it in the foreground, so let's create one in the background. I click on the background mode, and SAP will go back. It would run through all of its script, its copy control, its checking, its configuration, and it would then create the delivery. So it has created the delivery here, and now if it's green means it's good. Now let's have a look at the document error messages, if there's any. Okay, so it says, oh, I've created one delivery with no errors. If I click on document, I can see the document number here, and if I click on the document flow here, I can then see the link between the sales orders and the delivery. So this means that the delivery has been created based on the sales order en masse. And in real life, in the business context, you would use this transaction to create or to select lots and lots of sales orders based on your selection parameter, and you would create all of the deliveries in one go, and usually as a background job. So it's important before you create the deliveries en masse to decide what is your selection parameter, to try to create the deliveries as late as possible. And so you would select all the sales orders based on your selection criteria, you would create all of the deliveries, and you would process them. And it also means that you can run the program multiple times to create groups of deliveries, for example, or you could exclude certain deliveries, or you could, for example, run the program, create a certain set of deliveries, and then maybe an hour, run it again and create another set of deliveries. And it's really up to the business how they want to, what type of business it is, and how they're driving the delivery creation. Now that we have created delivery, let's have a look at the structure of the delivery we've created. So if we go to logistics execution, outbound processing, and goods issue for outbound delivery, in this case I'm going to the change mode, so transaction VL02N, and I entered the delivery that I just created. And as you can see here, we have the delivery, we have the ship to party, and the outbound number. And if we go to header, the first tab that we see is the processing, and here is all of the delivery milestones that we talked about on the header level. Here's the actual goods issue date, and below it we have all of the statuses, whether it's relevant for picking or not, if it's been picked, packed, confirmation, whether it's relevant for transportation planning. It's all here on the header level. If we go to picking tab, we then see here the picking deadline, when it needs to be picked, but more importantly the warehouse on the delivery header. So this means you can only have one warehouse on the header level. Loading is about the same. You have the loading date, number of packages, and the transport group if you have it. And if we now go to shipment, you then have the shipment data, so the transportation planning, when is it supposed to be done, the delivery date, if there is a time against it as well, if it's relevant for transportation planning, that's here, the shipping point and the route. And as you can now see, both of those that were on the sales order item level is now on the header level in the delivery. So if two items had different values, it would have caused two different deliveries. Then you have your bill of lading, information that's relevant for the shipment, like bill of lading, transcode, they're not so important, and they're mostly used to record shipment information. Next is the foreign trade tab, which is usually used for the intrastat processing, but it's usually done by the sales and distribution people, but it's good to know where it is. So it's in this tab here on the header level. Financial processing, it's not important to us, let's skip on. So for the administration here, you see the document type and the document category, along with when the document was created and the delivery priority. Any partner functions that you might have that's copied over from the sales order is here. The long text is here. Now, condition is again for pricing, and this is used if you ever want to have delivery pricing. So if you want to calculate your delivery costs from the freight forwarder, this is where you would do it. But most cases you don't do it, you do it in the shipment, but if you ever wanted to do delivery, it's here. Dates, this is for events. If you ever have a different event milestone after the delivery has been PGI'd, this is where you would store those type of events. So let's now look. Finally, you have the parcel. So if you ever have handling unit management, this is where you would see the parcel information here and the tracking of it if you ever have that functionality. Now, let's go to the item level. For this material, you see the item category here and the quantity. And let's go to processing first. And here you see the status again, but on the item level. Then you have the material number. You have the transport group and the unloading group. That's the most important. And you also have the batch number if there's only one batch. If I go to batch split, and if you have batch split turned on, if you ever pick more than one batch, it will be stored here. So we batch 1 quantity, batch 2 quantity, and so forth. Yeah. So if you have batch management turned on, this is where you would store that data. If we go to the picking tab, you then have the quantity that you pick. Now it could be different. If the warehouse is a different unit of measure, it might be that your picking unit of measure is different from what's on the delivery. You have the material availability date, we've talked about this, and if it's relevant for WM. And the storage type. As you can see here, it's relevant for WM, but the bin is empty because this is a lean WM warehouse, so it doesn't have a bin number. If it was a normal WM, a bin number would be there. Under the loading and shipping, you have shipping information, which is the transport group and loading group, not so important. Then you have foreign trade on the item level, financial processing, not important, so let's move on. What's important here is the predecessor data, which tells you if it was created with reference to a sales order, what the sales number was, what the item of the sales order was also. It's good to find out in the document flow. And finally, in the administration tab, you have the material movement type. And this is important because when you press that post goods issue button, the system will execute this material movement type. It will look at this material movement type, you'll see what are the account postings and what is the invoice postings that you will do, and it will do it. Yeah. So 601 is a standard one, which means outbound reduced stock. And if you look at a return document, it'll be totally different. So this is where you would control what happens to the inventory and what account postings you would use. And as we said before, this value is copied from the schedule line in the sales order. So to recap, we have on the delivery the header information is applied to the whole document and item level information. And on the header level, we have information such as the organization structure. We have the logistic deadlines, which is copied from the schedule line. We have the shipping information, like the shipping point, foreign trade, packing information. We'll have a look at this later. Output determination. We'll have a look at this later also. And partner functions. On the item level, we have the material and quantity, the material movements that we saw before, the item category of the item, obviously, picking, packing, and storage location, batch split, if there were any, and the predecessor data, i.e. the sales order or the purchase order that the delivery was created with reference from. So that in all is how we create the delivery and the general structure of the delivery.